The broadcast never showed it, but during Q3 in Austria, something clicked, not just on track, but inside Ferrari's garage. While the cameras followed the usual front-row drama, a quieter, far more symbolic shift was happening between Lewis Hamilton and one man, his race engineer, Riccardo Adami. Right after Hamilton crossed the line for P4, beating Red Bulls and nearly matching Leclerc, his radio stayed oddly calm. No hype, no team celebration, just a short, focused exchange with Adami. Precise, efficient, almost coded. No mention of podiums, no false excitement, just the voice of a driver and an engineer who finally understood each other. And that's what the cameras missed. This wasn't just a good qualifying. This was the first proof that Hamilton and Adami had clicked. And that changes everything inside Ferrari. Because behind every title fight, behind every championship dynasty, there's always one pair, a driver and his engineer. What happened in Austria wasn't just about setup, it was about trust, and it started with his silence. But who is Adami, and why does Hamilton trust him more than Ferrari's leadership? That's where the real story begins. Riccardo Adami isn't just an engineer. He's a survivor, a ghost in red. Most fans still associate him with Sebastian Vettel, four-time world champion, who often praised Adami's calm under pressure and sharp mind during Ferrari's most chaotic years. But Adami didn't just survive that era. He learned, he adapted, and now he's Hamilton's secret weapon. When Lewis arrived at Ferrari, most assumed he'd align quickly with Fred Vasseur, a familiar face from junior formulas, someone with executive authority. But insiders noticed something different. During simulations, Hamilton spent more time with Adami than with strategy chiefs. And while Vasseur gave press briefings, Adami rewrote how data was filtered to Hamilton in real time. Austria was the first visible proof of that shift. While Vasseur spoke of team unity, Adam and Hamilton operated like a military unit, sharp, surgical, unbothered by the outside noise. Every call in Q3 was timed to perfection. No traffic, no panic, just control. This wasn't Hamilton adapting to Ferrari. This was Hamilton reshaping Ferrari through Adami. And that raises the real question. Is Adami still following orders or writing them? Charles Leclerc started on the front row, Hamilton just behind. But while most saw two Ferrari drivers chasing the same goal, the data told a different story, one that hinted at internal separation, both in setup and strategic alignment. The Clerc's side of the garage ran a conservative config, low risk, familiar, stable, just enough to secure a result. Hamilton's side, a more aggressive rear setup, risky ride height, and delta margins that danced on the edge of grip. Why? Because he wasn't just fighting other teams, he was making a point to Ferrari itself. Q3 was the turn 3 snap would have placed him on the front row, ahead of Leclerc. And the radio after Leclerc got "Congratulations" from the team Hamilton, only Adami spoke with precision, not celebration. That silence from the pit wall wasn't accidental. It was political. There's a power shift happening inside Ferrari, and Austria was the first time it bled onto the track in Formula One. Silence is never empty. It's a signal, a message, carefully placed where words would be too dangerous. And in Austria, Ferrari silence after Hamilton's P4 spoke louder than any celebration. No team-wide great job, no public praise from Fred Vasseur, only Adami's calm debrief, followed by an internal radio blackout. Why? Because this wasn't a weekend of unity. It was a weekend of factions. Insiders confirmed Hamilton's garage operated semi-independently throughout qualifying while the core team focused on the Clerc. Adami crafted a custom rhythm with Hamilton from tire prep to delta planning. Vasseur was briefed, but distant. Not once did he enter Hamilton's side during Q2 or Q3. That's not procedure. That's message. And when Hamilton mentioned in post-qualifying interviews that it was the best operational session Ferrari's had, he didn't thank leadership. He credited Adami. He praised timing. He praised structure, but not the structure led by Vasseur. That wasn't coincidence. That was a quiet rebellion. A coded announcement that Ferrari's center of gravity is shifting, not in speeches, but in execution. The question now isn't whether Hamilton can lead Ferrari, it's whether Vasseur will survive his leadership. P4 on paper means nothing dramatic, no podium, no headlines. But for Lewis Hamilton, this fourth place meant a declaration, not of speed, but of structure. This wasn't about beating Red Bull, this was about sending a message from inside Ferrari. I have what I need. And it's not coming from the top. The last time Hamilton looked this calm after qualifying was during his Mercedes peak, back when he and Peter Bunnington operated like a neural circuit in Austria. The same pattern emerged, not in celebration, but in control. Hamilton didn't need to hype the result, he needed to show. It was repeatable, sustainable, strategically sound. He called the session world-class, but aimed a compliment squarely at how it was run, not who was running Ferrari. There was no praise for development pace, no flattery toward leadership, only cold respect for operational execution. That's how a new hierarchy speaks, not with fireworks, but with precision. P4 wasn't a position, it was a proof of concept, that when Ferrari runs through a dummy, Hamilton delivers, and when Vasseur stays out of the way, everything works. Charles Leclerc said all the right things. He smiled in the press conference. He praised the team. He welcomed Hamilton's performance. But the way he looked at the timing screens during Q3 told a different story. Leclerc has been the emotional core of Ferrari for years, the golden hope, the loyal soldier through chaos. But in Austria, for the first time, he wasn't the only strategist on track. He wasn't the only one shaping Ferrari's direction.
Hamilton's lap, fast, aggressive, one corner away from the front row.
Rewrote the balance. Insiders noted Leclerc requested a reanalysis of both cars' data post-qualifying, not for performance review, but to understand how Hamilton got so close with the newer setup and less time in the car. That's not curiosity, that's concern. And when asked if Hamilton's progress pushes him, Leclerc hesitated, a brief moment of silence before answering. Because the truth is clear, Ferrari isn't just Leclerc's team anymore. And in Austria, that reality started to sink in. In Formula One, shifts like this don't happen through press releases, they happen through lap times. And in Austria, Hamilton sent a psychological warning, not by beating the clerk, but by nearly doing it. On his terms, every weekend the media asks the same question: when will Hamilton get his first Ferrari podium? But if you listened closely in Austria, his answer changed. He stopped chasing the podium. He stopped making promises. He went silent and chose action over words. That's classic Hamilton. It's what he did in 2013 when critics questioned his move to Mercedes. Back then, he didn't fight the narrative. He redefined it, race by race, setup by setup, engineer by engineer, until he no longer needed to explain. He simply won. Austria felt like that moment again, not because he stood on the podium, but because he laid the first brick of something much bigger. A structure built not around Ferrari's past, but around his own vision of the future. One where Riccardo Adami becomes the new Bonington. One where silence means dominance. While the world looks at lap times, Hamilton looks at systems. And in Austria, he began shaping one that works. Not for politics, not for PR, but for results. Quietly, methodically, with a team behind him that doesn't wear titles, but delivers truth. This wasn't about finishing fourth. This was about proving he's no longer a guest at Ferrari. He's becoming its architect. Austria wasn't a breakthrough in lap time. It was a shift in control. The engineer who once guided Vettel now synced with Hamilton. The driver once isolated inside Ferrari, now commanding his own micro-empire. And the team principal watching from the margins. This isn't about whether Hamilton finishes P3, P2, or P1 next race. It's about how the power structure inside Ferrari is cracking and rebuilding around him. Every calm radio call, every silent post-session, every controlled execution from Adami. These are not random improvements. They are signatures of a system being rewritten. The clerk still smiles, Vasseur still speaks, but the decisions, the timing, the direction are no longer centralized. They are moving where results are. The story isn't told on screen, but in codes, silences, and quiet rebellions. Then this is where it gets decoded. Subscribe. Stay close, because the next revelation won't come from a press release. It will come from a radio call they won't translate.